And I just, it's beyond outrageous. I don't even know how I would classify it and still, be allowed to be on the air, so to speak. But it's more than outrageous. It's disgusting. It's a travesty. I think it's treasonous on the part of these elected officials. I mean, they're there for us. We put them in office. We count on them to protect our interests, and they don't.
But they can't stand up to public scrutiny. If enough people make noise, they've got to take action. And I'm telling everyone that's listening, I'm depending on that.
And you know what, Scott? Let me cut you off real quick. They can't deny this one. They could deny it until a few months ago, when they finally said, "Oh, yes, we do have this. We have this document. It's unsigned, and it was dated 3 years after the fact. But here, yes, we have this document." I mean, they gave us the proof that we were searching for, in terms of an acknowledgement from the Canadian government. But they gave it to us in such a fashion that we have an acknowledgement from the Canadian government, which was acknowledged and received by our State Department. Yet our government still doesn't want to do anything. And that's got to scare the crap out of any American citizen.
Yes. And you think about the laugh of, if this wasn't so serious, it would be funny. It would be funny. Somebody under pressure wrote up a document. It's not even completed. And again, Gary has that. Maybe he'll post it. It's not even completed. My date of birth, nothing. It's not completed. And it says signature of declaree. It's not signed. So somebody wrote up a document that a couple of weeks ago and presented it to the State Department unsigned, and our government is saying, "Oh, I guess everything's in order." No, it's not.
Well,
no, it's not.
And that's one thing. And for the listeners, they got to understand too that when Scott Loper came to me, he told me his tale of what happened, and you're sort of left like wondering, like, A, is it real? B, if it is real, how did this happen? But then you stick with it and you keep following it, and then you get a document like this, and you go, oh my God. These people have been lying to us. They've been lying. They said that there was no record. Now there is a record, but the only record is this one document that the Canadian government sent to our State Department, and it's unsigned. We have a couple other irons in the fire here to try to get other documents, and we're waiting for the response. And I expect that the response is probably going to be similar to what we got from Rob Andrews, but it's important that people contact their congresspeople about this particular issue, because as an American citizen, and I don't know if any of the listeners understand this, you can't go after a foreign government in United States courts under the Foreign Sovereign Immunity Act. So for Scott Loper, he's got to go back into Canada at great expense, and he may actually get nowhere if he hires a lawyer up there and they're pressured by the government to just make this thing go away. But unless our government says that the Canadian government sponsors terrorism, he is powerless to go after the Canadian government here in the United States, even though the Canadian government has a presence here in this country and they have assets here in this country. For instance, if you were in a car accident with a Canadian citizen in the United States, you could go after them here in the United States. If you got into a car accident with a Canadian citizen in Canada and conceivably they had property or bank accounts or something else here in the United States, you could still go after them here in the United States. But when you're talking about a sovereign nation, unless they're a state sponsor of terrorism, you can't go after them at all. The only people that can do it is the U.S. government. And the U.S. government has just turned their back on Scott Loper. And now they have the proof. After 3 years of denials, they have the proof. And
there's something else.
They don't want to do anything.
My 3-year-old son, Eddie, was kidnapped by the Canadian police. I mean, this is so extremely important. My 3-year-old son Eddie, is gone. He's gone. The State Department has initiated an international search for my son. They arrested me. My wife and son, my ex-wife and son are gone. We don't know where that 3-year-old is. And it may be that he was killed. It may be that they killed a 3-year-old. And it may be that the American government doesn't want to touch that. They don't want to talk about it. Nobody wants to tell me. So there's a small boy out there somewhere, alive or dead, but I'll never learn the fate of my son. I'll never learn the fate of my son unless people are pressured to come forward. There's got to be enough good congressmen. There's got to be, we only need one. Just one to say, what the hell happened here? Just ask the question. The answers are there.
Oh, they know the answers are there. But also, too, and Scott, you pointed this out earlier, for any American citizen who's going to travel outside of our country, and I go next month to Rome, of all places, to participate in a constitutional law conference, and quite frankly, if something happens to me over there, whether I do something purposefully or I get implicated in something, I don't know that I can count on my government. And that doesn't make me feel too good. And especially in light of Scott Loper's case, where they have the proof, and our government is just ignoring it. And I don't know how else to reach out to the American public, and we appreciate, Restore the Republic and WorldNet Daily and some of these media outlets that are getting this story out there, but it's so important that people start paying attention, because if this continues, we're as Glenn Beck would say, we're dead. We're just dead.
And another little tidbit is, I fear for my life. On a personal note, I fear for my life. How far will our government go? And I'm saying this on purpose. How far will our government go to keep this quiet, to keep me quiet? Anything happens to me, if you hear that I were to die in a tragic accident or something happened to me, don't believe it. Don't believe it. I definitely fear for my life, and I don't think that's paranoia. These people will stop at nothing, in my opinion, to keep this story from coming out. I just throw this out as an aside to all the listeners. When I went down to Washington to meet with Congressman Hoyer, or Majority Leader Hoyer, I was followed, and it was actually sort of comical. I mean, it wasn't even like they were good at it. But they know who we are, and they know that we're raising a stink over this, and they wouldn't care other than the fact that they know it's real. But they followed me right off that train, right up to the congressman's door. Same people.
It's like these guys are Keystone cops on the one hand, but they're evildoers on the other, because they have the power to bring this to light, and they're just purposefully ignoring it. But we're not going to give up.
I just want to say once again that, I didn't go over a lot of the torture. I can't yet do that. I can only tell you that I suffered acts of torture that have left permanent scars, definitely permanent scars. Believe me, none of you would want to trade your dreams at night for mine. Believe me, you would not. Gary, I don't know what else to say.
I'm here. I'm listening. I'm just soaking it all in. But, I remember our conversation when you had called me last week, and it was really difficult for me to absorb. And as Americans, we have to stick together. We have to fight for each other.
You want me to try to tell that story?